Well, there are a couple of lessons that I learned early that sustain me to this day. I believe to the core of my being that anger and hate are self-destructive emotions. You don't hurt anybody by being angry with them or hating them. You only hurt yourself. That stuff will eat you up. Second lesson I learned is I can't live life looking in the rearview mirror. It's a part of my story. And I can look back on my journey and I can find lots of incidences where I could have made different choices and they would definitely have been different circumstances. Case in point, sometime in the 60s, I don't remember what part of the 60s, but my wife and I went back to Florida for vacation. And so there were a bunch of us in Jacksonville, and we decided we wanted to go together to Alabama, which is my parents' birthplace. And so it took 2 carloads of us. So we get somewhere in Georgia, rural Georgia, on this 2-lane highway, and we have to go to the restroom. So we pull into the service station to use the restroom. And I go into the men's restroom, and it has never been cleaned. Well, it wasn't a men's restroom, it was a colored restroom. It had never been cleaned. And in order to get into either of the restrooms, you had to go get a key off a hook in the service station itself. There was a white hook and a colored hook. I use a colored hook because I'm colored, okay? I went in that restroom, I said, no woman that I know is gonna sit on that toilet. So I went back into the service station, got the white hook, the key off the white hook, and opened the white restroom for my sisters, my mother, and my wife to use. Well, listen, owner of the service station, who was pumping gas at the time, that was back in the day when they pumped gas for you, got really angry that I would dare use the white restroom. So once he got through pumping gas, he jumped in his pickup and he drove away, sped away. I said, okay, we may disappear in the woods, because if he goes and gets his boys, we're in trouble. Because like I said, we're in rural Georgia. So we loaded back up the cars, got back on the road, headed towards Alabama. About 5 miles down the road, here's a sheriff's car approaching from the back. And I figured, this is it. We're going to end up in jail or whatever. But it turned out that this sheriff was not interested in me or us. He was going somewhere else, so he went on past us. And that was in. But I was thinking, if I had confronted that service station owner about the state of that colored bathroom, or had even mentioned to him that I felt that the ladies in our party deserved a clean facility, it might have gotten ugly. But I just assumed that I could use the white restroom without endangering us. And so I think that we have to be willing to accept people for who they are and where they are. And he grew up believing that he was superior. I remember Austin and I took a cross-country trip in '63, married young couple, and we had to be picky about where we stopped, because not every place would give us a room. And so I remember when we were coming back, we left Jacksonville like 3 o'clock in the morning because we wanted to we were driving all the way to Louisville, Kentucky, I think. And so we left and we stopped at a service station. And I wanted to get gas. And the guy said, you can't use the restroom. I said, why? He said, because it's broken. And so I said, well, I need gas, because I needed gas to get the next leg of the journey. So I had to go all the way to Atlanta, which is a major city, before I could use the restroom at a service station. And I realized that if I had gotten angry about that guy denying me the use of a service station, chances are my life would have ended right there in that rural Georgia place that morning. It must have been about 5, 6 in the morning. And so I just, as I reflect on my life, I came to that fork in the road, be defiant, get angry, show them that I'm human too, or yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, and live to tell a story. And never feel like the person they treated me as. Always felt that I was precious too. I was worthy of respect too. I was gifted in my own way and capable of remarkable things. The fact that they didn't know that didn't bother me a bit. And so I just, like I said, I've just never been an angry person. I've never been a hateful person. I just believe that we're all yet human. We all are flawed. My flaws are just in different areas. And so I'm just that kind of person. That's just the way I live life. And I find it a lot easier than having to battle these demons or other people's demons or own their demons. I just have never been that way. And I think it's just part of the foundation that our parents built for us as kids. And we just grew up in a household that there was just never any bitterness. My parents suffered more indignities than I can even imagine suffering myself. Never complained. I remember back in the day, every child had a insurance policy, life insurance policy. In fact, I still have the one that was dated 1943, MetLife. Okay? And the insurance man came to the house to collect premium because they were like 10 or 15 cents a month. So nobody had checking accounts back in the 40s. And so I remember my parents would go to the door and the insurance man would always address them by their first name or call my dad uncle or something like that, boy or uncle. And they never referred to them as Mr. or Mrs., but they always insisted, and most of them were young white guys, always insisted they be referred to as Mr. And my father just always, Mr. So-and-so, yassa, whatever you say, you know. And then when he worked for the railroad, and he was always a machinist helper because they wouldn't let blacks be machinists. And most machinists were young white guys. And so within about 3 years before he retired, after 30 years, he retired after 33 years, so about 3 years before he retired, they opened it up. Now he had to be a member of the union, but the union would not let him do the job that he was qualified to do. But 3 years before he retired, they opened the door for blacks to be machinists. And some of his friends said, hell with that, man, I ain't gonna be no machinist. They made me work all these years without being, I'm screwing. So my dad said, hey, they open that door, I'm walking through. So he took advantage of the opportunity to be a machinist the last 3 years of his career. Now, it probably had some positive impact on his retirement income, but that's just the way, that's the house I grew up. He wasn't bitter about the fact that he was denied that opportunity for 30 years. He got the door open now. I ain't letting that sucker slam. I'm walking through that sucker. And so that's just the way we grew up. And so, I mean, I'm not bragging about that. It's just that I now appreciate the foundation that our parents gave us on which to build the rest of our lives. And it could have been very different for all 5 of us if we had had different parents, if we had learned different lessons as children.